Yeah, so core is one thing I probably struggled with for a long, long time. And I think a lot of people do in the gym. So they get in and they go into the bar. They can get up to a certain weight, but they don't really know how to brace. And it's probably taken me about 3 or 4 years to actually learn how to brace. And I'll tell you why it's so important. All right. You probably will. So if you are under the bar now, you'll get up to a certain weight. And then because you're not bracing, you'll end up just going into some poor spinal pattern and you'll hurt yourself. It's probably happened to a couple of people already. All right, so core, it's different for everybody. My philosophy around core is anything attached to your lumbar, spine, or pelvis, okay? So a lot of people just say, it's their abs, solid abs, a big six-pack, and you have a good core. Six-pack doesn't mean anything. Six-pack is basically your body fat. Core stability is kind of what we're kind of focusing on. So anything connected to your lumbar spine and pelvis, that's either your lats, so that goes all the way down to your pelvis, or it could be your quads, your glutes, anything around that area. That's what I think the core is anyway. So two parts to it. You have your passive and then you have your active core. Passive core is basically just the structural stuff, okay? So your spine, your joints, and your central nervous system. You can't really control that, all right? Your active core is what we kind of really focus on. So your muscles around, so everywhere around that lower lumbar, so lower part of your spine and your pelvis, and then non-contractile tissues. It's just like ligaments and fascia. So core stability, the definition of it, this is just a really cut down version that I kind of made into myself. So it's the ability to control your trunk over your pelvis to allow optimal production, transfer, and the control of force and movement. Okay, sounds like a load of gibberish, but that's basically what it is. Okay, so if you have no core stability, you're going to have a reduction in that. So a reduction in force and poor posture, and then obviously it says energy leaks, but could lead to injury as well. Okay, so really important. So why we need it? It's to protect our spine. It's so important. All right, so three kind of parts to our core. You have your local stabilizers, your global stabilizers, and your global movers. Okay, so local stabilizers. So there's three different parts. That there's like the inside part, which is basically like your deep core muscles, like your transverse abdominis. You'd say your erectors are probably, but you're not really training them when you're doing like ab sit-ups. When you're targeting your local stabilizers, so the deep core muscles, it's when you brace. Doing your core work, take a deep breath in, hold them. That's when you're building that kind of strength up. And that's kind of, that's where a lot of people think they can brace or think they can actually get a strong core by doing like sit-ups all the time, but it doesn't really work. Okay, core stability is what we're kind of focusing on. Your second one, your global stabilizers, that's the outside, that's your external obliques. So the ones at your side, your abs, say your lats or anything like that. Oh, sorry, no, your lats will be your global movers. But any kind of ones around the outside, there be your global stabilizers. And then your global movers are the ones that I was saying would be your glutes. You could say your quads, you could say your lats, but anything that kind of moves through like a multi-segmental exercise, okay, like squat, deadlift, bench. All right, three things to focus on. What I really want to focus on here is that first one, your local stabilizers. So your TVA, transverse abdominis, deep core ones, okay? So bracing for lifts. And how do you brace? That's the question. I think what happens with a lot of times with coaches is they just tell people to take a deep breath in and you don't really know what you're doing. You're kind of just pushing your belly out. Don't really understand why you're doing it. It's to obviously protect your spine, but it's a weird one. It's hard to just tell someone to breathe in, squat down. They don't really know how to do it. So everybody in the seat now, you can even practice this now. So taking a deep breath in, but think about blowing out, but not actually blowing out. Okay, so trying to fill up, say there's a balloon in your belly, you're filling up that balloon, holding it. Now I'm going to try blow out through my mouth, but actually not blow through my mouth. Okay, so you should nearly feel like your stomach's going to explode up. Okay, that's what bracing is. Now it's really easy to do that when you don't have anything on your back. All right, it's completely different. I have 100 kg in my back and I try to brace like that. It's going to be so much harder because you're getting compressed down. All right. But what was I going to say? So every time you get better. Yeah. So basically how you get better and how I got better at bracing and all my lifts is just doing it over and over again. So that was basically me going into the gym, 20 kg or even just the bar for my warm-ups, look like an absolute gobshite, taking a deep breath in with no weight on it, going down, doing my squat, people looking at me like, who's this gobshite bracing for 20 kg? But the only reason why I was doing it is just a repetition, just to get better. Just constantly do it. Okay. So anytime you're in the gym or if you're training on your own, Practice, 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 even if you're doing body weight squats. All right. That's how you're going to get better at it. So important to kind of get control of your core and learn how to brace. And I'll tell you why now in a minute. And this kind of relates back to your 3 lifts. So see that second line there? You need to create full body tension. Okay. If you don't create full body tension, there will be energy leaks in your compound movements. Okay. And that's kind of comes back to your core. If you're not bracing right, you can't get full body tension. Okay. So how to improve your main lifts and the common fault. So this is kind of the main thing I want to talk about today. Loads of different techniques. Different for everybody because people are going to be doing different exercises. I know Owen's doing a sumo deadlift. Asked me a couple of questions on that at the end, but I just picked the 3 main ones that a lot of people are doing. So that's barbell squat. A lot of these barbell squats, it's going to be the same coaching cues for a goblet squat. Won't be the same for a front squat, but it'll be similar enough. Okay. Then we'll go on to bench, and then we'll go on to a deadlifts. All right. So your barbell squat. Okay. Everyone knows what that one is. Onto your back, sitting your bum back, and go straight down. Okay. So it's a triple extension movement. And what that means is break out your hips, you break out your knees, you break out your ankles. So 3 places that you're extending from. So little tips now for it. So keeping the center of mass over your base of support. So where is your base of support? It is basically your mid foot. Okay. So just want to make sure you can see me fully. So if I have this bar onto my back, you see me there. If you could draw a straight line now from that bar all the way down, that would be directly where my midsole is. Okay, so it should go straight down in a line. If I don't have that position, or the bar is slightly forward, I'm squatting down like this and the bar's at my toes, that means my hips are going to rise, and then it's not going to be in that center of the base of my sport. And then vice versa, if it's really far back, I'm going to end up falling backwards. Okay, so keeping the bar directly over your base of support is so important. All right. Second one, like I said, relating back to that, creating that full body tension is pulling the bar down and engaging your lats, engaging your erectors. All right. So if you don't do that, or you don't engage your lats, your erectors, that's another energy leak then. A lot of people think when they're doing legs or doing their deadlifts, doing their squats, is I'm just using my legs. You're not. Full body exercise. All right. So bar down. You see a lot of people, a lot of powerlifters coming into the bar. So I'll go from behind. They actually pull my lats and pull this bar onto that little shelf that I made where my traps are. Okay. I can feel my lats light up. Deep breath in, and then you squat. Okay. Instead of going under the bar, shrugging up, placing it on your neck, and then squatting down and having a bar movement pattern. Okay. Squat pattern. Okay, so pulling the bar as hard as you can, engaging them lats. Okay, like I said before, lats connected to your lower lumbar. So important that they're engaged. And then what we talked about last week, creating that external rotational torque. Okay, so that tripod foot. Okay, so just to go through that again, creating that high ankle bone. Think about doing your splits, so sliding your feet away or trying to tear the world apart. It's probably the better way of saying it, to create that tension in your glutes. Okay. So we talked about lats engaged, erectors engaged, talked about our bracing, and then we're going to talk about that external rotational torque. So glutes, quads are engaged now. All right. So that's creating that full body tension. There's a complete difference if you just have your back or have the bar on your back, don't brace, you just squat down. Okay. You can still do the movement, but it's not going to be optimal. All right. Bomb squatting. This is kind of one that I've seen a lot over the years. It's such a bad technique. Well, it's not really a bad technique. It just, it can turn into a bad habit. Okay. So bomb squatting basically is flying down in a squat. Okay. So think, best way to describe that is, imagine I had this bar on my back and I was more of like a cartoon character and I fell from something. The bar was landing here. Okay. So it stays here. So I drop, the bar's coming. If I go really fast down, I'm basically catching that bar in that bottom position. It's actually making me lift even more. Okay. So if you go really fast down, I'm lifting much more weight or much more load than controlling it down and driving it straight up. Okay. So you're nearly catching that bar in that bottom position if you go down too fast. So basically you're making the lift harder. All right. So really control down. And then the intent that you push into the ground needs to be explosive up, okay? Obviously now, if you're going heavier and heavier with it, that intent is going to be much slower. Your force is going to be much, much slower, all right? And then last one, this kind of goes a little bit different for everyone else. So ask yourself, do you need mobility before squatting? Most people do. There's a lot of people that don't, but most lads do, to be fair. Some women, obviously, a lot of kind of athletes get it, but then it's, what's the best way to describe this? How are you supposed to know if it's muscular, structural? That's kind of comes from us. That's comes from me, Larry, or Shani. But stretching before will make a big difference. So if you're really stiff going into the gym, you won't be able to get into a parallel squat. Or if you are really tight in your calves, you might have a bit of a butt wink, okay? Which we'll go into now in a minute. Structural change is basically our structural restrictions. That's basically, maybe your body isn't built to go that low, okay? It's hard for you to know that. That'd be more up to us, okay? So just focus on, ask yourself, do you actually need mobility before? Most people do. And then see how your body feels when you're actually squatting. Right, your common faults now, the butt wink and knee valgus. So butt wink, like I said, what a butt wink is basically when your hips or your pelvis goes into a posterior tilt, okay? So barbell on my back. I think I went through this on the video there the other day when I had a little bit of one when I wasn't videoing. So going down, down, down. I don't know if you see this now, but grounding that lower back. All right, you really don't want to load up your spine when you're going into flexion in your back, okay? Now, where can that come from? Kind of going back to that last question, mobility. So really tight adductors, tight glutes, or even tight ankle or calves, the anchor mobility, okay? So that's why I said video, because then you can see. And then what you can do when you see that, if you have a little bit of a butt wink, stretch, 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 and see does it improve. If it doesn't, maybe it could be structural. Maybe you're not supposed to go that low. So maybe restrict your range of motion on it. And then the last one, your knee valgus. It's a bit of a biased one now. So knee valgus. So basically what knee valgus is squatting down, front view, going down to the bottom, and then driving up, your knees come in. Okay, so squatting down normal, that bottom position, knees come in. You don't want them in that position. Okay, so like we know, driving your knees out when you come up. Knee valgus. What was the thing I was going to say about it? Okay, yeah, women. Because they are built slightly different, how their hips are built slightly different, they're prone to do it a little bit more. Okay, so it's something, any women that are on this, just to think in the back of your head when you're going down, to drive your knees out. And then the other thing was, normally what it comes from is your inactive glutes. Now, I don't really like that word, inactive. Your glutes are always active, okay? It's just how much you actually use them, all right? So there's ways around that. You can put a band around your knee. You can do RNT, so that's loop the band around your knee, drive your knees out. Or the main thing that I said earlier is that the external rotational torque, okay? So starting with your knees driven out, your glutes are on fire, then go down into the squat, okay? Nice and slow down. That will normally help it. And then obviously ankle mobility. So you can kind of see where the common faults are coming from. So tight ankle restrictions, inactive glutes, that's just coaching cue, and then ankle mobility. So a lot of mobility can actually fix some of the common faults. Obviously, some can be structural as well. All right, so that's your barbell squat. Now that's the one on your back, all right, not front squat. Bench is the next one we'll go through. So packing your shoulders. Shoulders packed should be, and they should not protract. So they should always be packed. Which is the best way to say this? Do we have a band? We do. So I think most of you have a band at home. And how, or maybe the question is, how do you actually pack your shoulders? How do you actually, or what does it feel like? Okay, so doing a perfect band pull apart is basically how it feels. Okay, so what a lot of people do when they're doing this in the warm up, and I fall into that habit sometimes as well, is I just try to pull it. Okay, I'm pretty much swarm my shoulders there. But how you actually do a band pull apart is you're supposed to, before you even pull, you have to retract, squeeze your shoulder blades, and then pull. Okay. If you have bands, grab your bands now. Try it now. If you have it in front of you. If not, we'll get them by the end of it, actually, all right? So I'll talk you through at the end. Shoulders down, squeeze your shoulder blades in, and then pull. All right, we'll go through a couple of them at the very end. Lats engaged. That kind of gets overlooked when you're benching. People always just think, I need to feel it in my chest, I need to feel it in my shoulders. You don't really. You will at some stage, but I think engaging your lats more will pull down your shoulder blades and you get that into that nice retracted position where they need to be. So lats engaged is really important. You can kind of see a common pattern here where lats engaged with your squat, bench, and obviously it's going to be in here at deadlift as well. And then it's a full body movement. Same as I said with your squats. When people go in thinking, oh, I'm doing bench, I'm just using my arms, just using my chest, you're not. You're using your full body. So that's 3 points of contact, so 4 points of contact, you could say. So your feet pushed into the ground, glutes engaged, shoulder blades touching the bench, and head touching the bench. So 4 points of contact, all right? Should always stay on the bench. So you kind of know what that looks like when someone has really poor form doing a bench, is they push up, and the first thing to go, their feet start shaking up in the air, they're arching their back, and their bum's off the bench, and then they come in and they have a back injury, okay? So really important to keeping all them stuck onto the bench. And then, like I said, with our squats, bar path, okay? This one happens to a lot. I doubt he really cares, but I've probably called you out a couple of times on this, your bar path. So when I'm spotting you, hit the same spot every single time, okay? Can't really do it unless I had someone to video over me. But if this was the bar, I'm going down onto my chest. I shouldn't be hitting the top of my nipples the first time, below my nipples the second time, and then hitting me sternum the third time, okay? I have my shoulders packed. When I go down, nice and slow, I'm setting myself, I'm hitting it right in line. So it could be different. It could be slightly underneath your nipples, or it could be right in your sternum, but it has to be hitting the exact same time every single time. Like your bracing repetition, the technique needs to be flawless. Every single time, you need to do the exact same thing every single time if you want to get better at it. And then the last one, the little tip that a lot of people don't do is pushing up but back towards the rack. All right. A lot of people lose their shoulder stability and they don't really use their chest. Is when they push directly up or they start pushing forward. All shoulders, not using your chest. The size of your chest compared to your shoulders. Okay. So going down. So first thing first, re-rack it. Have your shoulders packed and set yourself. Don't drop too early. Go all the way down, down, down. Hit that spot where you always hit, and then push back towards the rack behind you. All right. And then your common faults. Probably went through this here. Your scaps protracting. Okay. And what that looks like is, if I go down to my side, lying on the ground, shoulder blades packed. I'm pushing up, up, up. You do not want to lose this position and go all the way up, okay? See the way I have loose shoulders now? My shoulders should be packed into the ground, reaching up, and they stop there, still packed, not reaching up, all right? So that's what a lot of people do when they're doing their bench. Second one's your hips rise. So we said that one before. That's trying to keep your 4 points of contact, hips coming off the bench, all that pressure or all that load from the bench or the barbell is going to go to your lower back, which we don't want. And then a lack of shoulder stability, okay? This could be due to a lack of thoracic mobility, okay? So you can kind of see the same common faults in your squat and your bench. So normally it really comes from, the first one obviously is your technique, second one technique, and your last one's your mobility. So ask yourself, if I constantly making the same mistakes, can I improve my mobility first, and does it change it? Then obviously after that, asking the coach. All right,
Rob. On his own. Go ahead. So like usually I find when I'm doing, which I thought I'm still unsure. So you know when I'm doing the bench,
yeah.
Like if it's like bench dumbbell from the ground, or if it's like if it's the barbell on the bench, like my back will, like I know it's just a natural, maybe it's just the core of my spine, but it's all like I find it really hard to actually keep it on the ground, like my lower back. Like if I'm lifting,
so is it this one? So if I have you on the bench here, now this is It would be a little bit of a debate with people. So powerlifters, I don't know if you can see me well. So if I'm lying flat on the bench, you're saying that you have that natural curve in your back.
Yeah. So like I can always get me hand under. I can always get me hand under like under me back. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's completely fine.
That's fine. Yeah.
So as long as you can keep them 4 points of contact, so your feet, your glutes, your shoulders, and your head on the bench, you're completely fine. Now, completely different from doing that and then doing that. Okay?
Yeah.
That's when all the loads only go to my lower back. All right, but having that natural curve is completely fine. Some people find it easier to squeeze their lats.
Is that line used?
Okay, so it's more of a powerlifting style, doing that kind of curve in your back, but there's nothing wrong with it as long as you keep them 4 points of contact. All right.
And is it the same if I'm doing like a floor press with a dumbbell?
Yeah, as long as you keep your bum on the ground, feet on the ground, shoulders and head on the ground, just spot on. Whatever feels comfortable for you, it's fine. Everyone's going to be slightly spinal posture. All right. Good question though.
You don't like just
then you need to do your deadlift. Okay. So this is a straight bar. This is a conventional deadlift, and a lot of people find it hard to ever deadlift because it's the hardest one to do. It's hardest to hinge. That fella down the end there, Al, he's only learning how to hinge, and he was telling me how hard it was. I was like, you don't get it. Another fella on my team was telling me today. You say, oh, why is it so hard to RDL? It's just so much technique in it, and you're not going to get it straight away. All right. So little tips that you can do that's helped me over the years is your start position. It's so important. Actually, no, the very first one is that one. You need to create full body tension. That's always what you need to think when you're doing these lifts. The first one is your starting position. Second one will be shoulders more forward. So your shoulder blades are over the bar and not your shoulders. So what that looks like is, don't really want your deadlift to be that. So you're like squatting it. You want your shoulder blades over, hinge back, and then coming up. So you can feel your hamstrings load up instead of a squat. All right. Your next one is taking the slack from the bar. So that's obviously when it's loaded up. How do you do that? How do you take the slack out of the bar? Okay. So I will load up this bar real quick. That's probably the best way to show you. And hopefully you can hear this well. All right, so taking the slack out of the bar at the very start is so important because it's going to stop that jerking sensation, okay? So if I don't take the slack out of the bar, I just yank it up and down. It probably looks okay because it's only 40 kg. If I go up and heavier, what's going to happen is I'm going to turn into that kind of round the back, and I'm going to pull it up. What you see a lot on Instagram, people are absolutely awful technique. All right, but taking the slack out of the bar, so getting into your normal starting position, open up your hamstrings, and this little noise here. So try listening in. Okay, so I'm nearly trying to pull the bar off the ground before actually pulling it. Okay, so slack out the bar is nearly lifting that bar off the ground. So nearly pulling it, say 20%. All right. And then loading up your hamstrings. So that kind of goes back to your first one, or the second one, sorry, the squat on the bar. So deadlifts, especially with the trap bar, is people squat it. So up and down, and they kind of feel it in their quads more. How to get around that and load up your hamstrings is take a break every single time. So if I'm doing a straight bar deadlift, I stand up, hinge back until I feel my hamstrings, hands onto the bar, pull myself in. Okay, my hamstrings are still switched on. Instead of going straight down, picking the bar up, picking the bar down. I don't really feel it anywhere. Okay, so loading up your hamstrings every time. That, like I said, that could be you resetting yourself. So hamstring switched on, all the way up, boom, squeeze, back down, stand up again, hinge back, and just constantly doing that. Yes, it's going to take longer. Yes, it's boring, but that's how you're going to improve your technique. All right. Tripod foot, exact same thing. Okay, so that's going to create that tension in your glutes again. So driving your knees out, and then chest and hips rising simultaneously. Okay, so when you go higher and higher with it, with your weight, the first thing that you want to do is you're going to use all your legs because it's going to be hard to pull that off the ground. And what that looks like if you don't use that chest and hips at the same time is you're going to get this shooting up of your hips, and then your chest is going to come up. All right. So imagine someone had their hand. So imagine there was a hologram of me there. I would have put my hand at the top of my shoulders and the top of his hips. They need to rise at the exact same time. All right. You don't want hips up, shoulders up, because what that is, I call it a stripper's deadlift. All right. So that's sticking your bum up and curling your back. All right. You like that one, Lewis? Did you? You dirty man. Right. So the common faults that you get with your deadlifts are your hips shooting up, so the strippers one. So there's the lower back's working it, and that's where you're going to get them little injuries. Squatting the bar, like I said, and that can come back to shoulder blades not being over it or not loading up your hamstrings. And then your last one, not using your glutes. So that's back to your external rotational torque. All right. So that's trying to deadlift like that. All right. You need to drive knees out, create that full body tension, and come up.
Rob, can I ask you, if you're doing it with a kettlebell?
Yeah.
Are you supposed to put the kettlebell on the ground each time when you do it, or like how do you know how low to go?
Yeah, it depends. It completely depends. If it's to improve your technique, do you feel like you're squatting it sometimes? You feel like you actually don't feel it in your quads or in your hamstrings? Sorry.
No, felt it in hamstrings, but then I was like, should it be going? I wasn't putting the kettlebell on the ground each time, and then I was like, if I bend my knees, is that gonna like mean that I'm doing it wrong? Basically?
No. Yeah, so it's you're kind of talking about a different exercise. So if it's if you're doing like a full deadlift, or you could say a kettlebell deadlift from the ground, then you can place it on the ground. If you're doing RDLs, that's only coming past your knees. So you're not really doing it wrong. But what happens when sometimes you use a kettlebell, and if you don't have the mobility for it, if you go too low, so you could be fine, and coming down to the very end, it could start like that. Okay, so that's why sometimes we say to people to learn at the start is get used to doing the RDL and just keeping that flat back up and down. Okay, but if you're fine doing it from the ground, you don't feel like you have any pain in your lower back, then I do it from the lower ground or from the ground, and I think you are fine, to be fair. But do that little technique that I was saying earlier about every single time. Put the kettlebell on the ground, stand up, hinge back, and then pick it up. Okay, so getting into that starting position.
All
right. So we'll do a little bit of practical stuff. I'll only keep you another 2 minutes. So get you everyone onto their feet. You're like, oh Jesus, I'm 8:45. Like, so we'll just do a couple of things, and I just want to show you how important it is, or some little techniques. All right. So first one is, I'll show you how to actually create that torque in your feet. Okay, so standing up, get up, Al. I'm looking at you. Good. All right. So first things first is tripod foot. We're going to start from our base. So big toe, little toe, heel. All right. Grip it onto the ground with your hands. All right. So not with your hands, but with your toes. Okay. So it should look like you're nearly grabbing onto the floor. Now from there, what I want you to think is, so go into a partial squat. And then we're going to think about doing the splits or sliding our feet away. So I'm thinking about like ripping the ground away from me from that position, okay? All right, you feel that in your glutes now? So now what I want you to do is take a deep breath in through your belly, and then think about blowing out, but don't blow out. Okay, you feel your core now, and then imagine you had a bar in your back and you can pull it onto your chest or into your shoulders. Squat down like that. Right back up. Do 3 of them, right? Deep breath in, driving your feet out, glutes engaged. Good, last one. Good, all right, shake it out. You probably feel your glutes switched on. Now what I want you to do is just do one normal squat that you're just doing a warm up. Sit down and go straight back up. Don't even think about it, push your bum back, don't do any of that technique, and come back up, all right? So you can feel the difference. All right, so you're creating that full body tension. If you don't do that and you just do the one like you did just there, then you have energy leaks. All right, so glutes engaged, feet engaged, shoulders engaged, core engaged. No energy leaks. Second one, what we'll try is, if you have a band, we'll try the band one. You don't really need a band. If you have a towel or anything, grab a towel. You can use a jumper, anything that you can just pull against. All right, so you might have to take your jumper off, test it out. Okay, hold at the sleeves, so hold it so you have a decent bit of slack. All right, okay. Now, this is how you pack your shoulders, and this is what it should feel like at your lats, your traps, or your mid and upper traps, or even your lower traps. All right, so looking at my shoulders first, before I pull, I'm squeezing my shoulder blades down and backwards. Okay, down, I'm gonna pull as hard as I can. Okay, so when you're on time, 3, 2, 1, squeeze your shoulder blades backwards and then pull nice and hard. And see that feeling all around your back. You can feel your lats light up. That's what it's supposed to feel like when you're doing your bench. And if you don't have that feeling, okay, everyone can rest. If you don't have that feeling, that's when you might lose that shoulder stability because you're not engaging your scaps. You're not using them, okay? So that's when you're going to get that weird wobbly bench, all right? And then let's see, is there one for our deadlift? Certain positions. Yeah, this is probably one of my favorite ones actually, that everyone should feel. So hinging back every time. So like I said, what I used to do when I was learning is every time I hinged back or did a rep, I stood up and did the exact same thing again. So keep your chest up. What I want you to do is push your bum back as far as you can go, okay, until you feel a stretch in your hamstrings. Okay, everyone do it. So bum back as far as you go. My knees aren't bending at all. When you feel this massive stretch in your hamstrings, then imagine there was a bar underneath you. Grab onto the bar, and then you're going to pull yourself into a squat or into that starting position of the deadlift. That's where you should feel it, okay? If you go too far forward and you feel your glute or your quad switch on, all you have to do is push your hips back until you load up your hamstrings again, all right? Now, it's a little bit easier when you have a bar in front of you because you can pull yourself in, engage your lats. But every single time you do a deadlift now, hinge back without anything in your hands, hamstrings engaged, pick up the weight that you're using, up, bum squeeze, back down, let go, stand up, and hinge again, okay? Hinge as many times as you can, and that's how you're going to improve your technique. All right? Anything else on that? No. I think that's pretty much everything because I don't want to go too long. If you have any questions before I let you go, give me a shout. Alrighty, just ask me things instead of me shouting abuse at you. I'm out of breath. If you have none.
Nope, all good. Thanks, Rob.
That's all good, yeah. Right, so I'll send this on to you on the WhatsApp anyway, right? So you just have these notes, and then I'll send you a little email tomorrow about what you can actually focus on for the next week or so. All
Thanks,
right.
Rob. Cheers.
Nice. See you later. Yes, Crowther. Oh.
What's up, bro?
What's up, bro? Did you learn a lot there? I'm absolutely bollocks.
Oh man, that was great. That was, bud.
Stop recording. There we go.